Let me start with a sort of a large ideological question. Define conservatism.
Well, for me, conservatism, as it pertains to our country, is fiscal. We have to be strong and secure and get rid of our debt. Military has to be powerful and not necessarily used, but very powerful. I'm on the sort of a little bit social side of conservative when it comes. I want people to be taken care of from a health care standpoint, but to do that, we have to be strong. I want to save Social Security without cuts. I want a strong country. And to me, conservative means a strong country with very little debt.
Some of the criticism on you from conservatives is you're not a real conservative. When you hear that, someone will argue on social policies that you're not a real conservative. Is it just different brands of conservatism that's out there and you just have a different brand, or do you think they have a point?
Well, I think they have a point from years ago, but they also have that same point with Ronald Reagan, who was a Democrat absolutely with a liberal bent. And Ronald Reagan became, not only a Republican, but a pretty conservative Republican. Not the most, but a pretty conservative Republican. And he's somebody that I actually knew and liked, and he liked me, and I worked with him and helped him. But I think that when you get right down to it, people do evolve on different issues. And I'm pro-life, and I was begrudgingly the other way. But I have to say, when those questions were asked, and that was many, many years ago, I wasn't a politician, and it was like a question that was never asked to me. As a real estate developer and as what turned out to be a world-class businessman based on what I've done, you don't ask questions about, gee, are you pro-choice, are you pro-life? It's just something that is not really discussed. As a politician, they discuss it all the time. I've always hated the concept of abortion, always hated it. And through various things and seeing various things, I've totally evolved on that issue, and I'm pro-life.
Should some form of abortion always be legal?
Well, to me, I have exceptions. Rape, incest, if the mother is going to die, and Ronald Reagan had those same exceptions, and many Republicans have those same exceptions. But I say rape, incest.
You said life of the mother. What about health of the mother?
Well, I said actually if the mother's close to death. And I'm talking about death. If because then you sort of say like, well, maybe.
Well,
she's
that's
not
the line
feeling
here.
so
What is
well.
the constitutional right between the mother and the unborn child? Whose constitutional rights matter more?
My statement on that happens to be if the mother will die, and you're going to know that. And the problem with the life, if you say life, what does life mean? You have a cold and you're going to end up having an abortion. So I have the three exceptions, and pretty much the standard three exceptions that many Republicans have.
This is going to be a litmus test for the Supreme Court nominees that you pick.
Well, I think I would certainly be asking them the question, and I think it would be, if not a litmus test, it would certainly be helpful in terms of my choices. I mean, I want great jurists, I want great intellects, and certainly that would be helpful to me.
You were somewhat defending Planned Parenthood earlier this week. It struck me that there was a time Planned Parenthood was not seen as a very political organization. Were you ever a donor?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but it's possible. I give to so many, Chuck. I give to so many organizations over the years, hundreds of millions of dollars, and so I don't know. I don't think so, but it's possible somewhere.
It wouldn't have surprised you if you had.
Well, it could be. Look, Planned Parenthood has to stop with the abortions. It's a lot of people consider it an abortion clinic. I think those tapes that I saw over the 5 tapes or the 6 tapes, I think they were outrageous. I think they were terrible, disgusting by any standpoint. And they have to stop.
Does it bother you that they were edited? Do you think that?
Well, I don't know about them being edited. I mean, I saw whatever I saw was terrible. I mean, it was terrible. And in particular, I didn't like the attitude of the people. They talked about it almost like we're making widgets or gadgets, and it was inappropriate. So I didn't like what I saw. I didn't like the doctors or whoever they were talking about it. They talked about it like we're doing cars or something.
But you seem to be hesitant about this idea of totally saying, let's shut down Planned Parenthood, let's defund it, let's not let the federal government give money to it.
Women's health issues to me are very important. I cherish women. I mean, my mother was this incredible woman. I have great children. I have a great wife. I cherish women. I understand the importance of women. I have such respect for women. I have many executives in my organization that are women that frankly get paid more than many of my men executives. I mean, they've done great with me. Early on, when I was building major towers, I had women in charge of a couple of them, and really big ones and really important ones, and that was unheard of in the construction industry. If you look back 30 years, that was like totally unheard of. So I understand women, and women's health issues are very important to me. If you look at Jeb Bush from last week, when he was essentially saying, let's not give money to women's health issues, he's made so many flubs, I don't even understand it. And I actually think that that statement is his 47%. When Romney did the 47%, the now famous 47% statement.
He did say he misspoke.
Well, I know. 5 hours later, he said, I misspoke, meaning he misspoke. I didn't misspeak. So to me, women's health issues are very important.
So you would not shut down, you don't think there should be a government shutdown over Planned Parenthood?
I wouldn't fund it if they have the abortion going on, and it's been a big factor. Now, you hear all different numbers. They say it's 3%.
Right.
Other people say it's 85%. That's a big difference. So I'd certainly look into it.
But would you shut down the government over this dispute?
I would not fund if they're doing abortions.
But as you know, there could be a stalemate in Congress. Is it worth shutting down the government over?
It's something I'd have to think about, to be honest with you. I don't want to give a hard and fast answer to that. It bothers me greatly that they're doing the abortions. At the same time, women's health issues are, very important to me. Now, you have a lot of other people that do that without the abortion clinic,
right?
Because they really are to a large extent, an abortion clinic. I also want to know, and this wouldn't have the effect because if it's 3% or 80%, but it would be interesting to know what is the number. They say it's 3%. Other people say it's 80 and 85%. That's an awfully big spread.
Let's go foreign affairs. You want to knock the hell out of ISIS. How?
Well, I want to take away their wealth. And as you know, for years I've been saying, don't go into Iraq. They went into Iraq, they destabilized the Middle East. It was a big mistake. Okay, now we're there, and you have ISIS. And I said this was going to happen. I said Iran will take over Iraq, which is happening, as sure as you're sitting there. And ISIS is taking over a lot of the oil in certain areas of Iraq. And I said, you take away their wealth. You go and knock the hell out of the oil, take back the oil. We take over the oil, which we should have done in the first place.
It's going to take ground troops.
What
you're talking about is ground troops.
Okay.
Maybe 25,000?
We're going to circle it. We're going to circle it. We're going to have so much money. And what I would do with the money that we make, which would be tremendous, I would take care of the soldiers that were killed, the families of the soldiers that were killed, the soldiers, the wounded warriors that are, I love them. And they're walking all over the streets of New York, all over the streets of every city without arms, without legs, and worse than that. And I would take care of them. They paid a big price.
So America should take over these oil fields, shouldn't be given to the Iraqis?
No, we can give them something, but we should definitely take back money for our soldiers. We've had soldiers that were decimated, so badly hurt, the wounded warriors, and killed, of course. But we've had soldiers that were so badly hurt and killed, I want their families to get something because we got nothing out of that war. We spent $2 trillion, Chuck. We had thousands of people killed, wounded warriors all over the place. They got nothing, and they can't even say we had a victory.
Who do you talk to for military advice right now?
Well, I watch the shows. I mean, I really see a lot of great, when you watch your show and all of the other shows, and you have the generals,
So
and you have certain people that
But
you
is there
like.
somebody, is there a go-to for you?
Probably there are two
every
or three.
presidential candidate has a go-to.
Probably there are two or three. I mean, I like Bolton. I think he's tough cookie, knows what he's talking about. Jacobs is a good guy.
You mean Ambassador John Bolton?
Yes.
You
I
mean
think
Colonel
he's
Jack
terrific.
Jacobs?
Colonel Jack Jacobs is a good guy, and I see him on occasion. I actually had dinner. I was given a very high award by the Marines at the Waldorf Astoria a couple of months ago. And your new head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the head Marine, was a very impressive guy. He just got appointed. I think that he will do a terrific job.
Let me, you wrote this in 2011 about Saudi Arabia. It's the world's biggest funder of terrorism. Saudi Arabia funnels our petrodollars, our very own money, to fund the terrorists that seek to destroy our people while the Saudis rely on us to protect them. What are U.S.-Saudi relations going to look like under a Trump administration?
Well, one thing they look like, first of all, I get along very well. They pay me millions of dollars for apartments, okay? I like that. So, and so does China, and so does Mexico, and so does a lot of other people, all right? I make a tremendous amount of money from selling very wealthy people from other parts of the world and from the United States, apartments and other things. They lease tremendous office space from me. So does China. The biggest bank in the world is in my building, one of my buildings. So it's not that I don't get along with all of them. I get along with them, but their leaders are much smarter than our leaders, Chuck, and like from a different planet. Saudi Arabia makes $1 billion a day, okay? They make $1 billion a day. Saudi Arabia, if it weren't for us, they wouldn't be there. They wouldn't exist. They should pay us. It's like Kuwait. When Kuwait had the problem with Saddam Hussein, like the ultimate problem, they were taken over. We go in, we fight.
We were paid for that war. They did. We had other countries that paid back some stuff.
We got nothing. And I met the Kuwaitis right
Secretary Baker did collect a lot of money.
A lot, but nothing compared to what we spent. Nothing compared to what we spent. And I'll never forget, shortly after the war, the Kuwaiti fund came to see me, and they wanted to do a deal. And I said, we have a great deal in the United States. They go, no, 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 not the United States, not United States. We don't want to invest in the United States. We gave them back their country.
But to go back to Saudi Arabia, if they're a funder of terrorists, why should we have diplomatic relations with them at all?
Well, look, I'm not a big fan.
Should we be holding them more accountable?
Well,
they treat women poorly.
The primary reason we're with Saudi Arabia is because we need the oil. Now we don't need the oil so much. And if we let our people really go, we wouldn't need the oil at all, and we could let everybody else fight it out. Look, Saudi Arabia is going to be in big trouble pretty soon, and they're going to need help. Because if you look at Yemen and you look at that border, you don't have to be an expert to know that is one long border. And they're not going in for Yemen. They're going in for the oil. They're going in for Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia is going to need help. Like it or don't like it, people have backed Saudi Arabia. What I really mind, though, is we back it at tremendous expense. We get nothing for it, and they're making $1 billion a day. But I think Saudi Arabia is a major target. A major target. And I think that's why
you think this is going to be the United States' responsibility if Saudi Arabia erupts into a civil war? This is the great fear among a lot of people
Well,
in
that
the Middle
could
East.
happen.
You think it's the U.S. responsibility to help settle that?
Well, I say this now because of what's happened with the oil revolution, with fracking and all of the different technologies that are coming about with the oil. I think that certainly we don't have the same motive that we used to have. We used to have a real motive. We needed
Financial motive.
We did.
Right.
We need that. That's a much smaller motive right now because we have a lot of oil. In fact, we're sitting probably on the largest, and between us and Canada, I think we probably have the largest in the world. So I really feel if we're helping them and if we want to help them, and it's something that probably we should do, despite what you said, and certainly we've been doing it for a long time, and Obama's
So if this
been
happens,
doing it.
you think if you're president, reluctantly, the U.S. is going to help?
I would say reluctantly, but
try
we're
to
going to be
stabilize
paid
Saudi
a
Arabia.
lot of money. We're not paid. We defend Saudi Arabia. We send our ships. We send our planes. Every time there's a little ruckus, we send those ships and those planes. We get nothing. Why? They're making $1 billion a day. We get nothing. And this is the problem with the world. We make bad deals. We have no victories. I mean, we just don't have victories anymore. As a country, we don't have victories anymore. And it's very sad. Whether it's trade with China, whether it's Japan selling us cars by the millions, and what do we sell them? Nothing. I mean, we give them practically nothing. And by the way, when we send beef, cattle, wheat, when we send things to Japan, they don't even want to take it.
Let's go to Europe. You wrote this: pulling back from Europe would save this country millions of dollars annually. The cost of stationing NATO troops in Europe is enormous, and these are clearly funds that can be put to better use. We pull out of Europe. Would you want to end the NATO alliance completely as well?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm a little concerned about NATO from this standpoint. Take Ukraine. We're leading Ukraine. Where's Germany? Where are the countries of Europe leading? I don't mind helping them. I don't mind being right behind them. I'll be right behind them. You know the old expression, go on, fellas, I'm right behind you. I'll be behind them so much. But why isn't Germany? Germany's a very, very powerful and economically powerful and rich country. Why isn't Germany, Chuck, leading this charge? Why is the United States? I mean, we're like the policemen of the world. And why are we leading the charge in Ukraine?
So you don't think Ukraine's our
I don't
responsibility?
like what's happening with Ukraine.
Yeah.
But that's really a problem that affects Europe a lot more than it affects us. And they should be leading some of this charge.
So you wouldn't allow Ukraine into NATO?
I would not care that much, to be honest with you, whether it goes in or doesn't go in. I wouldn't care.
So,
if it goes in, great. If it doesn't go in, great. Look, I will
sounds like you're
support
not a
NATO.
fan of NATO.
I'm a fan of fairness. I'm a fan of common sense. I'm certainly not a fan of us being against
We're about
Russia
40% of NATO.
for Ukraine when Germany is sitting back, you know, accepting all the oil and gas that they can get from Russia. So why isn't Germany involved? You know, she's a great leader. And one of the reasons that Merkel's a great leader is she sort of says, oh, good, let the United States handle it. Why are we always at the forefront of everything? As an example, you look at Iraq. China is taking oil out of Iraq like nobody would believe. What did we do? We spend $2 trillion on all those lives and wounded warriors. China is taking tremendous amounts of oil out of Iraq. You look at Afghanistan. We're fighting in Afghanistan, big mountains, tremendous ridges and mountains, and we're fighting over here. And China has these massive, you know, Afghanistan has tremendous minerals, which a lot of people don't know, tremendous minerals.
Nobody knows
China's
how to get
over
'em out.
here excavating all the minerals, and we're here fighting. And China is taking out all the minerals. What are we doing? What are we doing? The other day I ordered 4,000 television sets, 4,000 for a big project that I'm building and built. And it's a big order, right? So I'd love to buy American. You can't buy them from America. They're all from South Korea. Now, we defend South Korea. I like South Korea. They're great people. They also, I have great relationships with them.
How are you going to put? We're getting off a tangent here, but how are you going to put this?
No, but it's not really
How do you
a
put this
tangent. It's
toothpaste?
all
No.
common sense.
But how do you put this toothpaste back in the tube? Manufacturing jobs. You're saying you're going to bring these jobs back.
We're going to bring a lot of jobs back.
Most of them. This is automation and robotics.
Here's the problem.
That's taken away a lot of jobs. Outsourcing and robotics.
If you take South Korea, they make a fortune off it. We do very little.
Yeah.
To them, they do tremendous stuff. You can't buy a television, other than Sony, which is Japan,
Right.
You can't buy a television practically if it's not made in South Korea. Everybody, whether it's Samsung or all of them, Sharp, all of them it's like South Korea. So I said to myself, this is terrible. Now, when they have a war, when the young man, we want to be very nice today, right? So the young man from North Korea starts acting up and having one of his fits, we immediately get our ships going. We get our aircraft ready. We get nothing for this. I'm not saying that we're going to let anything happen to them, but they have to help us.
We do have a running theme here. You believe the U.S. should. You're okay with the U.S. being the world's police?
We should at least be reimbursed
if we
by these
get paid.
extremely wealthy countries.
So
yes.
essentially, you want
Chuck,
that turns our military into a mercenary force.
No, not at all. Look, we are a debtor nation. We owe now it's 1.9 trillion, okay? I've been saying 1.8, now it's it's really kicked in.
Right.
It's soon going to be $2.4 trillion, okay? That's like a point that, whether you believe in the great economists or not, that seems to be a point of no return. That's where we're Greece on steroids, okay? We're going to be there very soon. Why are we doing all of this? These are wealthy countries. They will give us, if we have the right messenger, they will give us. It's like this horrible deal with Iran. This deal, if you had the right, you'd have the prisoners back years ago.
Iran would still get money. I understand.
Can you believe that
but,
deal?
But let me ask you this.
No.
I
Why
understand
is
there's a
Iran
lot of
getting the
people.
money?
I understand a lot of people are critical to the deal. But what deal can you come up with that wouldn't give Iran money?
Okay. I would
Wouldn't
never
give
have
them
given-
sanctions
I would have
relief.
told them up front, by
No
the way,
sanctions relief?
we will never give you back your money. We will never
Period.
give you back your $150 billion. You're never getting that money back. That's number one. Number two, before we start negotiations, you have to give us our 3 prisoners. Now it's 4. Okay? When it started, it was 3. Now it's 4. Okay. You have to give us back. Without question, you have to give them back. And you know what? You don't want them, but we do. It's psychologically good, and it'll help us make a better deal together. That's good for you, okay? But I would have told them up front, you will never get your $150 billion back. They are going to be such a wealthy, such a powerful nation. They're going to have nuclear weapons. They are going to take over parts of the world that you wouldn't believe. And I think it's going to lead to nuclear holocaust. And I will say this. The people that negotiated that deal, namely Kerry and his friends, are incompetent.
What do you do on day one, though? This is a deal. Secretary Gates basically says didn't like the deal, thought the U.S. wanted the deal
Too much. No, they begged
so
for it.
bad negotiating
And by
tactic.
the way, they
all
should
of
have
those things.
doubled up the
And then
sanctions.
he said, can't pull out of the deal because of the international ramifications. What do you say to that?
I would.
He's a pretty wise guy.
Okay, as I've heard a lot of people say, we're going to rip up the deal. It's very tough to do when you say rip up a deal, because I'm a deal person. And
You get
when
that, even if
when
it's
I
you've
make
made.
deals, let me tell you. But I will police that deal. I've taken over some bad contracts. I buy contracts where people screwed up and they have bad contracts.
But you have to abide by
But
it.
I'm really good at looking at a contract and finding things within a contract that, even if they're bad, I would police that contract so tough that they don't have a chance. As bad as the contract is, I will be so tough on that contract.
So the deal lives in a Trump administration.
Well,
you're just gonna be.
It's very hard to say we're ripping up, and the problem is, by the time I got in there, they will have already received the $150 billion. Do you know if the deal gets rejected, they still get the money? Which is something I found out a week ago. I couldn't believe it. If the deal gets rejected, they still get all of this money. Iran is going to be unbelievably powerful and unbelievably rich, and Israel's in big trouble. Israel is in big trouble. Obama has really let Israel down.
Do you? So you believe the Saudis are going to get a nuclear weapon? You believe Egypt's going to go after?
I think
nuclear
other
weapons?
people will arm with nuclear weapons, yes, based on this deal, because if you look at it, Iran will end up being nuclear, even if it's not within the next fairly short period of time. And the whole thing about 24 days. First of all, the 24 days doesn't start immediately. There's a whole big deal before the clock starts ticking, right? So the 24 days could be much longer than that. In 24 days plus numerous weeks, you can do anything.
If you get evidence they're working on a nuclear weapon, You order airstrikes immediately.
Yeah, I don't want to really say, I would be so tough you wouldn't believe, but I don't want to really say, you know, if I win, and now I'm leading in every single poll, even you will agree to that, right? Every single, local, national, Iowa, New Hampshire, everything. If I win, I don't want to really be talking too much about, Obama talks too much about what he's going to do. We're going to raid here, we're going to do this. Yeah. General MacArthur, General Patton, they didn't talk. They got the job done. So I hate it, even the concept of, you know, I'd attack the oil. I had to say it because at some point I had to say it. I would take their wealth away from ISIS. I would attack that oil.
They're sort of trying to do that. That's part of the plan, is to try to decouple.
They don't know what they're doing. And if they are trying to do it, they picked it up from me because I started saying it 3 weeks ago. And you know what? I hated to say it because that would have been a great plan if they didn't know about it. Right. We talk too much. I can tell you this, the great General MacArthur and Patton, they're spinning in their graves when they see everybody talking.
Let me go through some grab bags. What launched our relationship, shall we say, was back 4 years ago. Do you believe President Obama is a citizen who was born in the United States?
Well, I don't like talking about it anymore because honestly, I have my own feelings. I think he should have taken the $5 million. I don't know why he spent $4 million in legal fees to keep his records, you know, away. Nobody's seen his records. I don't know. Maybe the hackers have his records. It'll be very. No, I meant his college records. I mean, he spent $4 million in legal fees to make sure that nobody ever saw.
Well, if you want him to release his, would you release all of yours?
What I do.
Would you release all your college transcripts?
I'm proud of my records, but he has to do it. If he does it, I'll do it. But I'm proud of my. Hey, I went to the Wharton School of Finance. I was a really good student. It's probably the hardest school there is to get into.
I've never heard you say anything about Wharton before.
Huh?
I've never heard you say that about Wharton.
I'm proud of the school. You know why? It's a great school. I mean, some of the greatest business minds in the world have gone to Wharton.
But why do you feel it's important to tell us that all the time?
I'll tell you why. Because everybody knows what a great school it is. Everybody knows that to get into Wharton is probably the hardest school to get into. It's, you know, right there, you know, within a couple of.
Ivy League, no question.
You have to be very smart. If you're a conservative Republican, you go in. Look, if I were a liberal Democrat, people would say I'm the super genius of all time. The super genius of all time. If you're a conservative Republican, you got to fight for your life. It's really an amazing thing. And let me tell you, they're plenty smart, and they're really smart.
But I guess I go back to, why do you have to tell us all the time that you went to Wharton? People know you're successful.
No,
they see you're successful. They assume you're smart.
They know it's a great business school.
Why do you have to say it?
We need business genius in this country. We need it. We can't have continuously bad trade deals with China, with Japan, with Mexico. I mean, Mexico's killing us. Mexico's killing us in trade, killing us at the border.
How are they killing us? The peso is worth less today than it was even 5 years ago.
Nabisco just announced.
How are they killing us? Their GDP is lower than ours.
Chuck, Nabisco is moving to Mexico.
This is not a country that is killing us.
Ford,
by the stats.
Ford, they're killing us, Chuck. Ford is building a $2.5 billion plant. Many other companies are building big plants.
If the economy is so great, why aren't people staying in Mexico to get jobs?
Nabisco yesterday announced they're moving out of Chicago into Mexico. Look what happened to New England. Look at New Hampshire and all the places up in New England.
I understand that, but
they moved to Mexico.
They're not doing better.
I don't care how they're doing as
a country. They're doing worse.
I'm just saying they're killing us because everybody's moving into Mexico.
There are people that argue that NAFTA was terrible for them.
Mexico is doing an unbelievable job. Mexico is taking our business. Mexico is the new China, okay? You look at
Where is the evidence of this?
It's all over the place.
Their GDP is smaller.
Chuck, they're moving companies.
The peso is worth less today. I mean,
and you know what?
That's not the sign of a strong economy.
Chuck, and you know what? Because it's worth less, they're doing a lot of business. I mean, because it's look at what China's doing. It's called devaluation. They're very smart. Mexico's doing it. You think the peso's just dropping automatically? They're very smart, and frankly, they're learning from China. China last week devalued their currency.
Which you've been begging them to do, by the way.
No, I've been the opposite.
Well, no, you've been hoping that they would actually, that their currency would finally be sort of more like the market of what it should be. It is now closer to what it should be.
They're the ones, they're doing it artificially. That's not the market.
They are, but it's looking like it's where it should be.
No, I don't want their currency to go down because it makes it, I've been fighting this for years. I can't believe you're saying that.
No, but you've been fighting the way they manipulate their currency.
They have totally manipulated their currency.
And now they're trying very hard to try to get it back to where it should be.
No, they've been manipulating it down though. Now they've just manipulated the biggest manipulation they've had downward.
A few more grab bags. Transparency in the White House. Will you commit to releasing the names of everybody you meet with as president to the public?
I would have no problem with it. You know, transparency is a great thing, but if you're talking about national security, or if you're talking about meeting with the leaders of Russia or Germany,
Or anybody.
I don't want
Anybody that comes into the White
I don't
House.
want to embarrass people. If Merkel wants to come over from Germany, I'm not looking to embarrass her. You know, if she wants to have a quiet meeting, I'm not looking to go wild. I want these people to like Trump and to like this country. So, you know, I don't think that's the most important thing. I do think having to do with campaign financing, everything should be released. It should be very open.
Right.
But having to do with that, I want to make a country coming to the White House feel comfortable. As far as people coming in from our country, like business people, 100%.
Everybody
Well,
here
I don't
that comes
care.
in.
Hey, look, I hire so many lobbyists. I know every one of them. A lobbyist called me yesterday, one of the biggest. He said, Don, I want to give $5 million to your campaign. I said, I don't want it. I don't need your money. I don't want it. Because if he gives me $5 million, all of a sudden I guarantee he's going to call and say, you know, I represent such and such a company. I don't want to have anybody
President
have
Obama tried to
influence.
put a ban on lobbyists ever working in the administration. Will you do something like that?
Well, that's a pretty good idea because, you know, these guys get out and they almost immediately go to work for a company and they have power that they shouldn't have. Look, when Jeb Bush raises $114 million, I know those people that gave him the money. I used to be one of them. I mean, I gave to everybody, okay? I know those people. He's like a puppet for those people. He's a puppet. Those people, they'll take negative ads on me and on other people because they want him in there because they're going to control Jeb Bush. And not only Jeb, they're going to control Hillary. She raised $60 million plus. They're going to control whoever's in. The lobbyists and the special interests and the donors have
So no lobbyists will work
100%.
in the Trump administration?
I don't want.
You'll have a ban?
I would certainly have a ban. Yeah, you can't put a lifetime ban, but you can certainly make it 3-4 years.
Fair enough. Edward Snowden, hero or traitor?
I say he's a total traitor. I think he's disgusting. I think he's a disgrace, and we should get him back. And he's caused great difficulty for our country.
Affirmative action. Should we keep it? Yes or no?
I'm fine with affirmative action. I mean,
Should it be
it's
expanded, or
we've been
should it be
having-
limited?
Well, it should be, you know, you have to also go free market, you have to go capability, you have to do a lot of things, but I'm fine with affirmative action. We've lived with it for a long time, and I've lived with it for a long time, and I've had great relationships with lots of people, so I'm fine with it.
Should private companies be able to fire people because they're gay?
Well, it's a big discussion, and I guess it's getting a lot of negative rulings right now, that whole thing, and I'm willing to go with what the courts are saying.
And that is, you don't think a private company should be able to do that?
I don't think it should be a reason, no. I don't think it should be a reason.
What is a fair living wage?
Well, you know, it's a very tricky, I want everyone to make a fortune. And with me, I'm going to take jobs back from China, from Mexico, from Japan. I'm going to bring jobs back like you will even be surprised, Chuck. You will be very surprised, so that we won't even have to be talking about the minimum wage.
right.
But, you know, we have a problem called corporate inversion in this country, where corporations are leaving the United States to go to other places because they can get lower wages and lower taxes. And we have to be very careful with the minimum wage. You know, it's great politically to say, hey, I want to give everybody $500 an hour. Forget about $15 or $12, right? But we have to be very careful because we have a huge inversion problem in this country. I mean, you look at some of the companies that are talking about leaving the United States, and many of these companies are run by people from Britain and from Ireland and from other people. They have no loyalty to this country. But many great companies, big companies, a lot of employees are talking about inverting, meaning leaving.
Right.
And we have to do something. And also, the $2.5 trillion that's sitting outside that can be brought back in, we have to make it
How do you encourage
palatable.
that? How do you get
Well,
those?
we're going to have to lower the tax. We have to lower tax. Right now, they have to pay a tremendous tax to bring that money in. We have to lower the tax so that they don't mind paying something, but they're not going to pay 30 and 35% to
There's
bring
some
the money
arguments
back
that say there's some people discussing the idea of sort of a one-time smaller tax, bringing it in and then using that for infrastructure.
Well, I'm okay with that as a step. But just to show you how bad Washington is, how they can't do it, I've been hearing about this for 2 years. For 2 years, everybody agrees that we should let the money in. And for 2 years, they can't make a deal. Okay?
Well, welcome
and
to
you know
Congress.
what? The Democrats, Republicans agree. They still haven't made a deal. This is for 2 years.
All right, going back, what's a living wage? What's fair?
I want to keep the minimum wage pretty much where it is right now.
You wouldn't raise it?
because of the fact that we have a country that is now competing more than ever before because of airplanes and transportation and
So you think
the
we gotta
internet.
keep the minimum
Well,
wage
we're not
lower?
going to be able to compete with the rest of the world. I want to compete with the rest of the world. What I do want to do is bring in jobs so much so that people don't have to live on minimum wage. But we are going to have to compete with the rest of the
All right,
world.
Tasha, a quick Facebook question. Michael Martinez asks, residents of the District of Columbia currently pay federal taxes but have only a non-voting delegate in the House of Representatives, no representation in the Senate. Should that policy continue as is? Should D.C. become a state? Should it not have to pay taxes? Should it be more treated like Puerto
Well,
Rico? How should DC residents
I
be
have
treated?
a conflict of interest because I'm building the greatest, I'm building at the old post office, I think what will be maybe one of the great hotels
So
of
I've
the
heard.
world. It'll open. We're, by the way, unlike our government, we're under budget and ahead of schedule. Isn't that a nice thing to hear? You don't hear that. Just like the wall will be under budget and ahead of schedule, and nobody's getting through that wall, believe me.
All right,
But
so the
I have
district.
a little bit of a conflict.
State or
I
not?
would like to do whatever's good for the District of Columbia because I love the people. You know, it's funny. I've really gotten to know the people, the representatives and the mayor and everybody. They're really special people. They're great, and they have a great feeling. So I would say whatever's best for them, I'm for. I have a total conflict of interest.
So you're okay with either way. If they want statehood, you're for statehood.
I mean, people are talking about that. I'd look at it. I'd certainly look at it.
Or give them back to Maryland, or do something.
I would look at a number of things, and something would be done that everybody would be happy.
Your slogan, we're going to hear it a lot today at the fair, we're going to make America great again. When was,
my slogan.
When was the last time America was great?
I would say during the administration of Ronald Reagan, you felt proud to be an American. You felt really proud. I don't think since then, to any great extent, people were proud.
Then let me ask you this. I'm not trying to play a little gotcha here, but in 1987, you took out a full-page ad. This is during the Reagan administration, and you said this to the American people. For decades, Japan and other nations have been taking advantage of the United States. On message, by the way, it's consistent. The world is laughing at America's politicians as we protect ships we don't own, carrying oil we don't need, destined for allies who won't help. Message-wise, very consistent.
From day one, including during the Reagan.
I was just going to say, let's
NAFTA.
not let our great country be laughed at anymore.
Right.
If that's the last time America was great again, you didn't think America was great then.
No, I thought America was excellent. I think NAFTA was a huge mistake. I thought it was a terrible mistake, and that was. But I just think that he set a tone that was an excellent tone for this country. I disagree.
Looking
with some
back,
of his
you seem to like it,
No,
but
I
at the time,
well,
this was
looking back, I like
this
him
was a
more.
fiery guy.
Yeah,
Donald J. Trump of 1987 was
well,
not.
it's the same guy. If
You're
you think,
consistent.
I have been consistent.
I'll give you consistency.
For years, I have been saying that we haven't had. I spoke with Carl Icahn. Carl, he's totally on board. You should call him. You should have him on your show. I said, Carl, and he's a great negotiator. I said, we're not going to have these babies negotiate for us, Carl. You're going to take over China. You are going to negotiate with China, and I'll throw Japan in. I've got Henry Kravis. I've got so many great people. We have the greatest business people in the world in the United States. We don't use them. We use political hacks. We use ambassadors. We use Carolyn Kennedy, who's a very nice person, because my daughter likes her a lot, Ivanka, so she has to be nice. But she's a nice person. She's the ambassador to Japan. She's a primary negotiator with Japan. She doesn't know anything about negotiation.
Ambassadors aren't the primary negotiators.
No, but she's very important in that. In Japan, the ambassador has always been a very important element. And I'm not saying that. I want the Carl Icahns. I want the great business people, and I know them all. I want them to negotiate for us. And by the way, we're going to have a different country.
If you could win as an independent, would you be more comfortable running as an independent than as a Republican?
No, I want to run.
I get why you don't want to run as an independent, because it's not.
Well, it's more
you probably
difficult.
couldn't win.
Yeah,
it's
more
hard.
difficult, but it's not that. Look, somebody was asking me that question the other day times 50.
I
all right,
understand.
I mean, I'm hearing it all the time.
I know.
I'm running as a Republican. I'm leading by double digits
So
for the
just
most
say,
part.
I'm going to stay as a Republican. Why is it so hard?
Because I'm not prepared to close that door yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if someday in the not too distant future it happens. They're treating me very well. I just want to be treated fairly. And, I'm a person that believes in leverage. I'm a natural business person.
Yeah.
I believe in leverage. I would say that it's highly unlikely that I ever do that, but I just don't want to close that door yet. I'm running as a Republican. I'm leading as a Republican. I will win. I think I'm going to get the nomination. And if I get the nomination, I think I'll be president. And if I'm president, we're going to have a great country. And then we will really have better than Reagan, better than anybody. We will make America great again. That's what it's all about.
What do you tell conservatives who say you and the Clintons are in cahoots?
Well, it's totally false. First of all, nobody's been tougher on Hillary Clinton than me. And when Bill Clinton called me, I had already made up my decision, just so you understand. He called me long after I had made a decision, and everyone knew I was running. So it wasn't like that. And I think he's very disappointed that I'm running because I'm the one person that's going to beat her. Now, I think she may not be able to run, to be honest, because this whole email thing is a horrible thing. General Petraeus, his life has been destroyed, and he did 5% of what she did. So assuming she's able to run, which would be absolutely, to me, a miracle at this point, I will beat her. And I don't see the other people that are running against me currently.
You regularly
winning.
call her the worst Secretary of State.
I think she's
So
the
it
worst
begs-
Secretary of State in the history of our country. Look what
Well,
happened
well,
during her
it begs
reign.
the question. I'm a history buff. Who was the worst before her then in your mind?
Well, I'll tell you who's the worst after her. Kerry, because
Right,
of
but
what
who
I
was
mean.
the-
Look,
who do you believe was the
I
worst
don't want to
before
get
her?
into names.
Well,
You
no,
know what?
because
I'm insulting Chuck. I'm insulting so many people. I don't want to insult people. I want to be nice.
I understand that, but it goes to this larger. Everything with you is the best or the worst.
No, it's
there's
not
no
that.
nuance.
Chuck, during her reign,
Who-
the entire world fell apart. It fell apart during her reign. The entire world. Look what happened. Everything fell apart.
So the Arab
Nothing
Spring
was
is on
done.
her? Is that a
Well,
fair
I
thing?
think
Do you put
could
the Arab
sort
Spring
of,
on her?
I mean, you could sort of say maybe a little bit, right? I mean, sort of, right?
That's a big
But
charge.
look at Kerry.
Why do looks matter to you so much? You talk about it a lot.
I don't think they matter.
Is
so
that going
much.
to matter in who you hire as a cabinet
No,
secretary?
no, not at
okay.
all. No, I don't know why you say. I mean, I own Miss Universe. I own Miss USA. I own, agencies, model agencies. So from that standpoint, but no, I've seen. Actually,
You'll hire
What I found
somebody.
is really
You'll hire
good-looking-
somebody not based on looks.
What I found actually is that really, really beautiful people or good-looking people, in many cases, in most cases, don't have the edge because they've never had to have the edge. People that don't look so good fight harder, and they're actually better. So looks don't matter to me so much.
All right. I sort of was amused about this little excerpt from your Playboy interview in 1990. The questioner asked, what does all of this, meaning talking about your yacht, the Bronze Tower, the casino, what does it really mean to you? And you replied, props for the show. And they said, what show is that? And you replied, the show is Trump, and it has sold out performances everywhere.
And it has been for a long time.
Are we all a part of a show? I mean, there is some,
No.
you know that some of the criticisms and some of, we all feel like are we in a reality show?
No, this is not a reality. This is the real deal.
But
our country has
you
to
did
be,
smile when I read the show stuff.
I think
'Cause
it's
it
fine.
resonated
I mean,
with
it's
you.
fine. Look, my life has been an interesting life. I've had a lot of fun, and I'm leading in the polls. I go on your show. You will get the highest ratings you've had in years. I mean, it's one of those things, assuming people know I'm on. I mean, whatever it is, look at Fox. Look what happened at Fox. I mean, it's a whole crazy thing going on. And all I care about, and this is 100% truthful, I love this country and I want to make it great again. And it's not going to be great. If we keep going the way we're going, we're going to be third world. We probably already are. You look at our airports, our roads, our bridges, our schools, our school system. We're 25. We spend more on individual students than anybody else. We're 25 in the world. We have to fix our country. We have to make our country great again.
Mr. Trump, we'll have to leave it there. A lot more to get to, but I assume I'll have you back again.
It was a great honor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very
All right.
much. Thank you, Chuck.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and then click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.